Hello, I'm Paul Cox, and I'd like to welcome you to Slooh, where you can join our global community as we learn to explore space together. And tonight, we're celebrating all that glitters, the tears of the twins. My favorite meteor shower of the year. It's the Geminids. Now, if this is your first visit to Slooh, or if you're registered as a Slooh crew, please consider joining Slooh as an apprentice or astronomer member tonight to support our mission. It will help preserve our little sanctuary free of clickbait advertising and, the altogether kind of intrusive experience that the web's kind of become now. Now, before I tell you what we've got coming up in tonight's livecast, let's take a little step back for a minute to think about what inspires Slooh's unique mission to teach the world to explore space, and hopefully what's inspired you to join us tonight as well. So, oh, look at this. We're looking at this live image stream already coming, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but you regular viewers will know I get a bit distracted by the pretty pictures. Look at that. You've got the plough there over on the right-hand side. Oh, that's looking good. Anyway, listen, I want to tell you about the inspiration that keeps us going at Slooh. And it's really from the beginning of time. Humans have turned their eyes skyward. They gathered around fires to share stories of the mythical creatures and characters they saw in the stars, marking that ebb and flow of the seasons while doing so. And each generation learned the myth, the legend, the lore of the night sky through those magical and often heroic stories passed down through the ages. And tonight we're doing exactly the same thing. We're gathering from all corners of the globe and carving out a tranquil sanctuary to explore, learn, and share that same sense of curiosity and awe of celestial wonders like meteor showers, just as our ancestors have done for millennia. Now, it doesn't matter what perspective you hold. If you wonder what's out there, you've come to the right place to embark on your personal adventure of discovery, whether that's spiritual, cultural, or the scientific. Now, if you're not already a member, please sign up tonight. We need your help to support our mission to teach the world to explore space in a commercial free sanctuary. And if you're a parent, teacher, professor, please check out our new classroom and college astrolab programs. You can find links to those under the membership link at slooh.com. And I've already said it, but if you're already registered as Slooh crew, please consider upgrading to apprentice or astronomer membership to enjoy loads more features, including, by the way, using Slooh's telescopes at our flagship observatory at the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands. Talk about those a bit later. And of course, our Southern Hemisphere Observatory in Chile, hosted by the Pontifical Catholic University down there. Now, please help spread the word about the live cast tonight on social media, and make sure you share any meteor shots you capture tonight using @Slooh. And if you have any questions for me or our other hosts, we got Slooh astronomer Dr. Paige Godfrey and Slooh's storyteller supreme Helen Avery. They're both coming on the show as well, so please post them over in the discussion forums at slooh.com. So let's take a breath. Have a look at this this image at the moment. This is a live image stream coming in from our Canary Islands Observatory, and we have got loads of feeds that we're going to be showing you tonight. And I'm going to go through them in a little bit, but just look at this. We've got a beautiful sky for meteor watching tonight. There we can see all the stars. We can see the bright constellation of Orion, and then virtually central in the screen, we've got the constellation of Gemini. And that's where all of these meteors are going to appear as if they've come from. So what have we got for this packed show tonight? I'm going to take us through some of the many live feeds that we've got in a minute. But then we're going to hear from Slooh astronomer Dr. Paige Godfrey, and she's going to be teaching us about the Geminids with her Meteor Shower 101. By the way, Paige also live casts her Intro to Astronomy course here every Wednesday, so make sure you catch that every week. I know she was teaching us how to hunt for asteroids in her live cast only an hour ago. Now, after Paige, we have Slooh storyteller Supreme Helen Avery. She's going to be telling us about the myth, the legend, and the lore of the constellation of Gemini. And do not miss Helen's constellation stories every Sunday. It's a cracking way to finish off your Sunday and finish off your weekend. And just like I said in that introduction tonight, there's no better way to learn the night sky than through the stories of the 88 constellations, just as our ancestors have done for millennia. So come back and see Helen on a Sunday as well. Now, after that, we've got, if you're enjoying clear skies wherever you are tonight, and I know that from a lot of our feed partners tonight, we've got a lot of clear skies in the USA, not so many across Europe. But if you're enjoying clear skies where you are tonight, I'm going to be explaining the best ways to watch the meteor shower from your own backyard or garden tonight, including what time to watch them, where to look, and some useful tips to make the entire experience enjoyable. By the way, warm clothing has a great deal to do with that. And then, coming up even later, Dr. Paige Godfrey is going to be joining us again. She's going to be taking the helm to teach us about the mysterious object responsible for the Geminids meteor shower. It's unusual because it's not a comet, which are the normal culprits. The object responsible for the shower tonight is an asteroid named 3200 Phaethon. And by coincidence, that huge lump of primordial space rock will be making an historic close approach to Earth on Saturday. And I'll be back here with live views direct from the telescopes that Slooh members get to control every night. So then, if all of that wasn't sufficient, while we're looking, of course, at all these live streams from cameras all around the world, basically, well, Europe and South Africa, we've got some, and then in the United States. But if all of that wasn't sufficient, Helen will then be back to tell us about the mythology surrounding Phaethon, the person the mythological character that asteroid was named after. And I'll then return to teach you how easy it is to capture your own Geminid Meteor photos with fairly basic DSLR cameras and mirrorless digital cameras. Is probably a lot easier than you may think, but I've got a bundle of very hard-learned tips to share with you. Right now, and to finish the live cast, by the way, Helen is going to be telling us about the strange history of the Geminids meteor shower. It's all a bit peculiar, including why it's one of the few annual showers that are actually getting better and better as each year passes. And of course, this is Slooh. So while we're doing all of that, we'll have our eyes glued to all of these live feeds that we've got coming in from around Europe and the USA, using these special low light cameras to help us capture these wonderful shooting stars. So let's take a look at some of the live feeds that we've got scattered throughout Europe and the USA. Now, for most people in Europe, the bad news tonight is there's kind of cloud virtually everywhere. We've got a few nice little spots in Spain, got a couple in Italy, and a couple more with some broken cloud. So we're still going to keep our eyes peeled on those. We do, though, have clear skies in the Canary Islands, which is just off the west coast of Africa, where the Slooh flagship observatory is. And that is really providing one of our best chances of seeing some really great Geminid meteors tonight. So we'll cover this in more detail in my segment about how to watch a meteor shower from your own backyard. But what is it that you're keeping an eye out for in our live feeds tonight? And that is a meteor. Look at that. How perfectly timed is that? You see that straight line right down at the bottom. And where's it pointing? It's pointing up to those bright two stars, one slightly orange, one slightly blue, just above center to the left. Those are Castor and Pollux, the two twins of the constellation of Gemini. And that's why these are called the Geminids. And we know that's a Geminid meteor because it looks like it's coming from that direction. If we see a line like that going anywhere else across the image, it's going to be what we call a sporadic meteor. But all Geminids will appear as if they come from those two stars very near or marking the head of Castor and Pollux. How cool is that? How perfectly timed was that? Because I was really just about to tell you what to look out for in our live stream. And there it goes. Now, we've got two different types of image streams for you tonight. We have live video and we have live image streams like the one that we're looking at tonight. And meteors will look slightly different in each type of feed. In the live video feeds, meteors will appear as a bright streaking light across the screen, almost instantaneous. And it's absolutely guaranteed. If there's one thing guaranteed in meteor watching, if you blink, you miss it. The same is true if you're watching with friends. As you look down, if you're all outside, you look down, you'll suddenly hear cries of, wow, did you see that one? So you have to kind of prop your eyelids open with a matchstick and never take your eyes off the sky when you're meteor watching. Now, in our live image streams tonight, like this one, actually, this one is watching Mount Tady here, and you can see there the plows on the right. We've got another kind of W constellation up in the left, and that's Cassiopeia. And there's lots of people out there on top of the volcano tonight watching for Geminids. Now, in these image streams, it's exactly like the one that we saw on that all sky image. And it captures, these are long duration exposures. So that image will appear on screen for maybe up to 20 seconds and you'll see that. But then bang, it'll switch on to a new image. So keep coming through all the time. So we're going to explain to you some of the other phenomena that quite often get mistaken for meteors, but I'm going to cover that in my how to watch them from your own backyard a little bit later. Now, if you see a meteor in any of our feeds tonight, please share it using @Slooh, just in case we miss it, as I nearly missed that one. It's a great way to get your friends and families involved as well. So share that on social media, get them to come over, and we will have a global meteor party. Now, I kind of run out a little bit in this segment of our show. So we're going to hop over in between our segments tonight, between me, Dr. Paige Godfrey, and Helen Avery. We're going to have just a little bit of music. And there's another one. There is another Geminid Meteor. Can you see that one just to the left? It's above the two domes, you can see. So kind of, yeah, it is just above those two white things on the left-hand side. And you can see that bright streak. And once again, what did I say? It's pointing back to the constellation of Gemini. And that's called the radiant point of a meteor shower. And I'm going to tell you a little bit later that when you are out in your own backyards looking at a meteor shower, loads of people will tell you, oh, look south, oh, look north, look this way, look that way. No, get a sun lounger, lay down as flat as you can and just look right up at the top of the sky, and you'll be amazed at how quickly your eyes can adjust and quickly go off to these little flashes left, right, and center. So, wow, 2 meteors already, and we're not even within our first 15 minutes yet. What's happening tonight? So, I'm going to wind up on this. Now, in between our little segments, we're going to chill and enjoy a little music and a little live meteor watching. So please make sure you keep your eyes peeled on these images as well, because this already, the fact that we've seen two meteors so quickly, this probably indicates that this is going to be a pretty good shower. And this is in the Canary Islands, and that's coming up to its peak time now, 2 a.m. there at the moment. So it's only going to get better from here, folks. Anyway, in between, we're going to have a little live music, little live meteor watching. And then after that, Dr. Paige Godfrey is going to be joining us to teach us about the Geminids with her Meteor Shower 101. So don't go anywhere. Keep your eyes peeled for Geminids. Tell us what you're wishing for as well, maybe using the hashtag Slooh. So we're going to have some music now. Bye for now.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Paige Godfrey. I'm here to talk to you tonight a little bit about the science of the Geminid meteor shower. And we're going to start with Meteor Shower 101. What is a meteor shower? Where does it come from? What causes it? Why do we see fireballs streaking through our night sky? So, if you tuned into my Intro to Astro show earlier, about 2 hours ago now, if so, actually, welcome back. I'm glad you stayed with us. You are troopers. And also a shout out to we see on Facebook that we have people from all over the globe tuning into this show tonight. We just want to give a shout out to all of you. We have from India, Australia, Europe, everywhere. And so great to have you joining us. So, a meteor shower, I think to best describe it, we first should distinguish between what a comet, asteroid, and a meteor are, because those are three different words that get used in similar conversations, but they are actually all different things. So, a comet, which is what usually causes a meteor shower, is a chunk of ice and rock that comes from the outer solar system beyond the orbit of Neptune out in what we call the Kuiper belt and out even further from the Oort cloud, where a lot of icy bodies lay from the early solar system formation. And when they get perturbed, they get shot into the inner solar system. When they pass by the sun, they heat up and the ice sublimates and leaves a debris trail. So these comets are usually what causes meteor showers. However, tonight's meteor shower is very unique because it's actually caused by an asteroid, not a comet. And an asteroid, unlike comets, are all rock. They don't have ice. And they originate from what we call the main asteroid belt, which is located between Mars and Jupiter in an orbit out beyond Mars, but closer in than Jupiter. It's this large asteroid belt. And these rocky bodies can also get perturbed, kicked out, sent towards the sun. And in a similar fashion to comets, the heat from the sun, the instability from rotating and flying through the solar system so quickly can cause debris to break off of the asteroid. We get dust grains and small little rock particles, and they stay in a tail formation behind the asteroid or the comet. If we're having a comet fly close to the sun, we see the tail because the gravitational pull of the main asteroid is still relevant. And so it keeps the tail of the debris. And if this debris tail crosses the Earth orbit, then when Earth goes through it, we get a meteor shower. So these pieces that break off of the asteroid are called meteoroids. They're space rocks, but they're bigger than a dust grain, but they're smaller than an asteroid. When they hit our Earth atmosphere, they burn up and we see a fireball that kind of looks like a shooting star or a falling star. Now we know it's not actually a star, it's a meteoroid burning up in our atmosphere. But when they were first discovered, they looked just like stars streaking across the sky. So if a meteor makes it through the atmosphere and survives and actually hits Earth's surface, then we call it a meteorite. And these are heavily studied in astronomy because these are pieces of space falling onto the Earth's surface. So our meteor shower tonight is unique because it was caused by an asteroid, which is all rock, as opposed to a comet, which is ice and rock. So that's going to be a theme that you keep hearing throughout the show about asteroid 3200 Phaethon, which is the cause of this meteor shower. So another question that you might be wondering is how come this meteor shower is so prominent compared to other meteor showers? They happen a few times throughout the year, but this one is called best one of the year. And so there's a couple reasons for this. Depending on how much of the main asteroid or comet gets broken up when it's sun, is how much debris is there for our Earth to plow through orbit. Another thing is that when the parent asteroid or comet is passing by during the meteor shower time, we see more debris, which means we see more meteors and a better meteor shower. The meteor showers happen every year because our Earth orbits the sun every year. And so every year we pass through this debris trail. But there's more debris closer to the parent asteroid or comet than there is further away. Some debris gets kind of left behind, and a bunch of debris stays near the parent object. So when the parent object is passing through during the time of the meteor shower, you get a better show. And if you've looked at our live cast schedule, you'll see that Paul Cox is giving a show Saturday about the approach of the Geminid Meteor Shower parent asteroid 3200 Phaethon. So we're expecting a really good show tonight, about 100 meteors an hour. We're flipping through our live views now to try to catch some streaks across the sky. If you see any, feel free to report them to us on either slooh.com or Slooh on our Twitter. So the Geminid Meteor shower, you're going to be looking towards the constellation of Gemini. It is not that these meteors are actually coming from the stars in the Gemini constellation. It's that they appear to originate in that zone of the night sky. So, one of the things about zodiac constellations is that astronomers use them in research. There are 88 well defined constellations that are recognized by the research community because they help us to define regions of the sky, kind of it up like a map. And picture kind of like state lines, for example. These constellations make the lines of our night sky. So when we look towards the Gemini constellation, that's where the asteroid plowed through in our night sky, and then we see the debris left over. Another analogy at the moment, when I mentioned that there's more debris closer to the parent object than there is further away, I'm picturing a mother duck with the ducklings. And we see them like crossing the road. There's a bunch of little baby ducks really close to the mama duck, and then there's always like those one or two little teeny ducklings that are like looking around, not walking towards the mom, not paying attention. That's kind of like the debris that gets left behind, catches up eventually, but more debris is close to the mama duck. I hope I'm not taking this too far. Anyway, we're going to get back to our music and our live feeds for a few minutes. When we come back, our storyteller, Helen Avery, will tell us all about the myth, lore, and legend of Constellation of Gemini, the twin. the zodiac region of the night sky that you should be looking at to see our meteors for tonight. We'll be back in a few minutes.
And welcome back. My name is Helen Avery, and you're here with Slooh, and we're watching the Geminids meteor shower this evening, and we've seen two, so that's not bad in the first 27 minutes or so. So that's pretty exciting. So as Paul Cox mentioned earlier, the Geminids are so cool because they appear to come from the constellation Gemini, the zodiac twins of Castor and Pollux that are in our night sky, after which are also named the two brightest stars in that constellation. So we're going to talk a little bit about the mythology of Castor and Pollux. There's a beautiful story, and several stories actually, that come with these stars that while we're looking up, waiting for our meteors, we can just sort of, think about. So the exact radiant point of the Geminids seems to come from Castor. That's the alpha star in the Gemini constellation, and it's not actually the brightest of the two, even though it's the alpha star. And coincidentally, it's not the divine half of the pair either. So you can see right now Castor and Pollux in the main screen. As you'll see, two dots in kind of the middle of our all-sky telescope there. And the upper one of that diagonal is Castor. So there's I've got a bit of a blurry screen myself, so I can't really help you more than these two in the center of the screen in the diagonal. There are Castor and Pollux. They are our twins. As I mentioned, Castor is the one at the top. So the legend has it that Castor and Pollux, or Polydeuces, as he was first known to the Greeks, hatched from an egg. Not the same egg, because their mother, Leda, wife of the king of Sparta, had been seduced one night by Olympian god Zeus, who appeared to her as a giant swan. Oh, and we are seeing meteors now. I don't know if everyone can see that, but it's pretty exciting. The feed, we just saw a couple. Pausing in the story to just look up and see this wondrous event happening right in front of us. There they go. Wow, they are fast. There's another. My goodness, we are seeing some great ones tonight. This is fantastic. And there they go, some more. Wow. So I'll continue the story while we're looking, just changing views there to see if we can see any in the all sky, and again keeping an eye on Castor and Pollux in the middle. So as I said, they were both hatched from different eggs because their mother was seduced one night by Zeus, who, as I mentioned, appears as a swan, kind of weird as details are. And at the same time, Leda also lays with her husband, Tyndareus. So 9 months on, or however many months it took in Greek myth, Leda lays two eggs, and inside one is Castor and his sister Clytemnestra, and they're children of her mortal husband, so they themselves are mortal. And then the other, Polydeuces and Helen, who later becomes Helen of Troy, emerge, and they've inherited their father's traits and are immortal. So you have Castor and Polydeuces, our twins, one mortal, one immortal, twins and brothers that, despite their differences, are absolutely inseparable. Together they are known as the Dioscuri, the sons of God, and both are well loved and heroic. They ride white stallions, they're like your typical heroes. Castor is the better horseman, and Polydeuces is said. There's another one. Wow, that's a big one. Again, if you manage to catch it, then we'd love you to share the images of some of these meteors. Wow. Maybe they like a story. Castor is the horseman, and Polydeuces is a boxer, and Castor is said to be sort of, and Polydeuces is more virtuous per se. But whenever there's a crisis, these twins are called upon. So they save their sister Helen on a few occasions, and they accompany Jason and the Ark on the voyage to rescue the Golden Fleece. But they are also love-struck fools. This Greek tragedy is coming, if you can't tell already. Of their affections were two sisters, the Leucipides, who were daughters of the White Horse. But unfortunately, these two sisters were betrothed already to none other than the cousins of Castor and Polydeuces. But this doesn't stop our heroes, who sweep in on their own white horses and take the sisters back to Sparta. But that's really the beginning of the end for our fair twins, and indeed it even sparked a war, because the cousins who had their women stolen take revenge on Castor and Polydeuces by stealing a herd of their cattle. And then to get them back, never a good idea, Castor and Polydeuces then leave sister Helen alone with Paris, the Prince of Troy, in order to go and save their cows. And that gives Paris the opportunity to kidnap Helen and leads to the start of the Trojan War. But neither Castor nor Polydeuces even see that war, because while they're carrying out their plan to get their cows back, their cousins catch them and kill Castor. Oh. And Polydeuces is heartbroken to have lost his friend and brother, and remember, they are inseparable. He goes to his father Zeus and begs him to bring Castor back to life, and Zeus says, I can only give you a prize. Polydeuces can share his immortality with Castor, but they have to spend their time alternating between Hades, the underworld where mortals go when they die, and the heavens with gods in the sky at night. But they don't stay there for long, because according to Roman legend, these two heroes then pop out of the sky and appear on a battlefield at Lake Regillus in 496 BC. And just hours later, after this battle, are seen refreshing their horses in Rome at a healing spring, sharing news with the fearful Romans that this battle has indeed been won. And then in a puff of smoke, they disappear. Back to the sky they go. And that earns them a place among the Roman gods, not just the Greek gods' time. And Polydeuces becomes Pollux, as we know them today, Castor and Pollux. And they were so important in Rome that they were on coins, and contracts were actually sealed by shaking hands and swearing an oath that was, by Gemini, I will pay you X for your slaves or figs, whatever they were selling in ancient Rome. And that kind of evolved to become by Gemini, which we still sort of hear today. You're probably not shaking hands with anyone saying, by Gemini, I'll pay you. But it's still a word that exists, and we know it probably best from Pinocchio, the Disney movie, Jiminy Cricket. Seen as a pair of brothers wasn't just the Greeks and Romans, but in other cultures too, as far away as Australia and New Zealand. And the underlying story that's repeated around fireplaces around the world about these divine twins is said to be a secret teaching, and it's to remind us that we as individuals actually have a mortal and immortal part to us that is inseparable, which is just, I think, really beautiful. But not everywhere were they seen as twin brothers. So, for example, in Arabian mythology, the stars were two peacocks. In Phoenician culture, they were a pair of kid goats. And finally, the Inuits see the two as a pair of doorstones of an igloo. So certainly given the freezing temperatures here in the northeast, and I'm in New York tonight, I can relate to that one. But enough of these stories, although they seem to coax out the meteors. So we're going to take a break now, or I'm going to take a break, and we're just going to keep an eye out for some more. Again, if you catch any, then please take a picture, an image, and send it to us. And after the break, Slooh astronomer Paul Cox is going to be back, and he's going to tell us what we need to watch the Geminids meteor shower from our backyards later tonight.
What? You have to give us more warning than that. Hello, everyone. We're back. And if you've just joined us, you've already missed some terrific Geminid Meteors. Now, that will teach you to turn up late. But I'll give you a little bit of a recap. I'm Paul Cox, and this is Slooh, where you're joining our global community as we learn to explore space together. And tonight, we're celebrating all that glitters, the tears of the twins, the best meteor shower of the year, the Geminids Meteor Shower. Now, we've already seen some cracking meteors. We've heard from Dr. Paige Godfrey, who gave us a Meteor Shower 101. And we've just heard the fascinating mythological story of Gemini and those celestial twins, Castor and Pollux, from Helen Avery, Slooh's storyteller. You have to catch Helen's shows on a Sunday, Constellation Stories. It is just like humans like us have been doing for millennia. It's the best way of learning the night sky. Just looking at this live image stream coming in from our Canary Islands Observatory. I've learned so many of those constellations there, and learning the stories behind them just fix lots of other information in there. And what we're seeing at the moment there, everybody can recognize the Orion Nebula. That's just right of center. But the story that Helen was telling us just now is about those two bright stars just above and left of center. And that's the constellation of Gemini. Now, it's nearly 3 a.m. at the Canary Islands Observatory. And wherever you are in the Northern Hemisphere, roughly 3 a.m. after 2, Gemini is going to be very, very high up in your sky, just like they are now, which means, don't forget, all of these Geminid meteors appear to emanate from there. You can see them anywhere in the sky, but they'll always be pointing back to the constellation of Gemini. So if you're this kind of time of night and they're right up in at the top of the sky at zenith, then you can see meteors across the entire sky, as we've already been doing. Now then, what are we up to now? Well, if you're lucky enough to have clear skies where you are, I'm going to tell you the best way to have your own meteor watching session. But before I do that, if you're new to Slooh or are a registered, or if you're registered as Slooh crew, you've got to help support Keep Slooh, the tranquil refuge free of commercials, clickbait, and the general intrusiveness that is so common on the web. And am I the only one who gets annoyed by all that? But anyway, if you sign up as an apprentice or astronomer member, you get to enjoy all the benefits, like using Slooh's mighty telescopes at the Canary Islands and Chile observatories. Now, keep your eyes peeled on our live image streams for some live meteors. The studio is just going to turn off that little bit of feedback that I got, I hope. And we are going to see, I'm going to tell you how to get the best of your own meteor watching session if you're lucky enough to have clear skies tonight. So what is it that you need? Well, there's a few essentials for a meteor watching session. And the very first one is a laptop or a phone playing the audio of our show. Don't go out there without any commentary. Learn all about it and all that kind of stuff. We've got some great segments coming up as well, by the way. But listen, seriously, the single most important thing that you need to do when you're meteor watching is to make sure you are warm and comfortable. Listen, sitting outside in December, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, is not the most pleasant thing to do unless you're wrapped up warm, unless you're nicely prepared for it. Comfort really does rule. So warm clothes, blankets, hot water bottles, those little chemical hand warmers, they're really useful as well. Just make sure. Oh, did you see that? Did you see that one? Woo, woo. Nice. Now, this is a little time-lapse animation. So this is showing those meteors when they pop through the sky, which is pretty cool. And we've got so many more feeds that are going to be coming online. So if you are clouded out tonight, like a lot of Europe is, we've got a whole stack of new feeds coming online in the United States over the next couple of hours. So make sure you stick with us. But let's go back to, if you've got clear skies, you want to go outside and have a look at some of these yourself. It is the best meteor shower of the year. So warm clothes, blankets, keep warm. You've got that little bit. you've got your laptop or your phone. Now, if you've got those outside, listen to our show, but don't be looking at the screens because you need to do what's called getting your eyes dark adapted. When you first go outside in the dark, it takes about 20 minutes for your eyes to fully adapt to the darkness. And although as soon as you go outside, you'd see the brightest Geminid meteors, and I'll tell you, some Geminids are so bright, they kind of almost light up the ground. But you'll miss some of the fainter ones unless you're dark adapted. So if you look at your phone screen or your laptop screen or something like that, it ruins that dark adaptation. So don't be looking at that, be looking up at the skies. Make sure you've got a torch outside because however dark adapted you are, you do not want to trip over the dog when you're trying to get back in or just walking around. The other thing goes back to comfort, snacks and a flask of something hot. In my personal opinion, you can't beat chocolate and hot chocolate. Just basically have a chocolate feast when you're meteor watching. That's what I do. I also try and not sit on a lawn. All right, so I always recommend you have a garden lounger so that you can lay back and enjoy the view directly overhead. But if you put that on grass, you're going to get pretty goddamn damp, and it gets a bit miserable. If you put down a tarp or you've got a deck, set up on there. And as I say, garden lounger so you can lay back as far as you can. One of the other most important things to have with you when you're meteor watching is exactly what we've got tonight. It's good company. Meteor watching is always far more fun in a group. And you can also kind of cover more of the sky. But I told you before, it's one thing is guaranteed when you're meteor watching. As soon as you look down, everybody else around you will be hooping and saying, wow, that was the best one yet. And you'll miss it. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me. Anyway, listen, how do you watch them then? So that's what you need. Warm clothes, laptop, torch, snacks, hot food, comfy garden lounger, loads of blankets, good company. But how to watch them? What time do you go out to watch them? Where do you look? So the first two with the Geminids are actually quite easy because the constellation of Gemini is up quite high. It's just coming above the horizon about an hour or two after dark in the northern hemisphere. So you can see Geminids kind of coming up from the eastern horizon shortly after dark. But as Gemini gets higher and higher in the sky, you can start seeing them anywhere in the sky. And that's what I recommend. Even if you're going out, say, I don't know, 9, 10 or something like that, in the evening local time, I recommend that you still just get that garden lounger and try and look straight up. But what you got to do there is never, ever concentrate or focus your eyes on a single star. You've kind of almost got to be disinterested. It's kind of being very aware. There's this kind of little trick that you can do, and it's just becoming very aware of your peripheral vision. And when you do that, you're conscious of the entire sky above you. And our eyes are so good, aren't they? Better than any telescope, really. As soon as you see a flash, even if it's right in your peripheral vision, you'll turn to it. Your eyes will turn to it so quickly. Now, Geminids, unfortunately, don't leave what are called persistent trains. You'll see a lot of websites tell you that they do, but Geminids don't tend to leave these persistent trains, and that's after the flash through the sky. Some meteor showers will leave this kind of glowing trail for a couple of seconds, but Geminids don't really do that on the whole. So try and look up. And you can see these any time of night. So actually, it's a great shower, and it's one of the. I wrote in our discussions, if anybody's got these fond memories of watching the Geminids or any other meteor showers, then share them over at slooh.com in the discussions, because I shared one earlier today, and it was the best meteor watching session I had ever had, and it was for the Geminids. And it was my daughter. She was 8 years old at the time. We did everything that I'm talking about now. We got ourselves so comfortable. We both looked like Michelin men. We had so many clothes on. And then my wife came out and piled blankets and all sorts of other stuff over the top of us. And we stayed out there for several hours. And it was the best meteor shower ever, just like tonight. there was no moonlight to spoil the view. And that's why tonight shower is not only Geminids are always the best meteor shower of the year, but with no moonlight, it means that we can see virtually all of them. Now, you will hear a lot of people talking about seeing 120 Geminids an hour. You won't. But the Geminids is still a fabulous shower. Now, if you see 60 meteors an hour, that's pretty good going. But, you know, you've got to be under ideal conditions. Gemini's got to be high in the sky when you're doing that. And you've got to spot them all. Some of them might be going on behind you. No matter how much you're trying to look at all the sky, you still won't see them all. So these figures are kind of they're the theoretical maximum that you can see from any one location under ideal skies when Gemini's right above you, and you can monitor the entire night sky. But don't let me put you off it, because the Geminis are still the best meteor shower of the year. So best time to watch any time after darkness, but it does get better after midnight. Midnight to 4 is pretty good. So sometimes on some of the other meteor showers, instead of staying up late, I recommend people get up early, because a lot of meteor showers reach their peak at 4 to 6 a.m. or those couple of hours before dawn. Where to look, I've told you where to do that. Getting dark adapted, that's really quite important. Make sure you tune in to your peripheral vision so you don't miss any meteors going off either side of you. How many will you see realistically? Well, if you're doing it in the early evening, I think you'd be lucky probably to see a couple every 15 minutes, something like that. But the later it gets, the more and more you'll see. And it really does depend. It's so difficult to forecast these things. But frankly, if you go out tonight under moonless skies and you've got clear skies, you won't be disappointed. You will see some meteors. And if you do, make sure that you share them with us. Just use at Slooh on social media, and that will get to us. I would also actually, by the way, like to welcome. We've got so many people around the world watching us tonight and listening to us tonight. I know a lot of you actually are in the kind of Eastern Hemisphere. We've got a lot of people from Asia, from India. We've got some from Japan as well. And then, of course, we've got Australasia as well. Hello to all the Slooh members down in Australia and New Zealand. You know who I'm talking to down there. And, of course, it's daylight down there. So they've kind of already had their Geminids meteor shower, but they might get a few more tonight, because it's not just one night, you know. You can watch meteors over a period of nights, but tonight this year is the peak. And there's one very peculiar thing about the Geminids, which Dr. Paige Godfrey told us about earlier. A lot of meteor showers, well, all meteor showers, are caused by the debris trail of comets, or in this case, an asteroid, left as they pass through our region of the solar system. And that debris trail, Earth passes into it. But most of these kind of cometary debris trails, they kind of dissipate. The dust particles, the little meteoroids that Paige was telling us about, they dissipate over time. So that cloud, that stream of debris gets kind of less and less dense. So you see less and less meteors. But with this particular meteor shower, Jupiter is perturbing this enormous stream of debris left by this asteroid, or some people call it a rocky comet, 3200 Phaethon. And it's actually pulling that stream more into Earth's path. So every single year we're seeing the Geminis just get better and better and better. So that's really why, one of the main reasons why it's one of my favorite showers. It's also one of the most consistent as well. Now, talking about observing from your own backyard, I kind of talked about a bit of casual observing there, but you can also nerd up with your meteor watching. You can record your observations, and there are several organizations that you can go to their websites and they'll tell you exactly what you need to collect. It's the time, it's the direction that you see them in, stuff like that. And if you're able, if you're a more advanced observer, how bright they are. And there are organizations like the International Meteor Organization, the American Meteor Society, and the British Astronomical Society, their meteor section. They all accept submissions of your records. And there we're looking at this all sky. This has been our best view tonight. This is a very special low light camera that we're looking at here. And it gives us a 180-degree field of view across the entire sky at our Canary Islands Observatory. This observatory is home to Slooh's big telescopes, our half-meter telescope and our other telescopes that Slooh members get to control every night. This is way up on a volcano, 8,000 feet up altitude above the Atlantic Ocean. So superb. What seeing conditions is actually what astronomers call it. It's very stable atmosphere. And the largest optical telescope in the world is based in the Canary Islands. Not many people know that. They think it's Chile or Hawaii or somewhere like that. So Slooh's telescopes are certainly in very good company there. And you can get to control those every night. Anyway, we are going to enjoy some live meteor watching now. Oh, that's our Chile observatory. Now, right, let's just compare these. I might overrun this session, but it doesn't matter. Paige won't mind. This is our Chile observatory, and in Chile now, it's a few hours. It's about 3-4 hours after darkness. And you can see where Orion is. So at the moment, Gemini actually in the southern hemisphere doesn't rise quite as high, but Gemini is actually off to the left, about 11 o'clock on this image. So if you think of that as a clock, it's about 11 o'clock position. It hasn't really risen above the horizon, but we can still see a large chunk of sky where Geminid meteors can be coming from. And we'll know if it's a Geminid meteor because it will kind of be pointing back to that 11 o'clock position. So if you're anywhere in South America, I know we've got a lot of viewers. We always get a lot of viewers from Brazil. Hello, everybody. And Mexico, Chile, and Argentina. So hello to everybody down there in South America. But if you're in South America or in the USA or Canada tonight, that's the kind of view that you're going to get maybe around 9 or 10 p.m. local time. With Orion over there, it's just risen, and then just after another hour, and we're going to see the constellation of Gemini rise at that 11 o'clock position. But if we go back to our Canary Islands Observatory, which is 300 miles off the west coast of Africa, we can see as Earth's rotated there, Orion is way off to the right now. And that's what's put Gemini, the constellation of Gemini, bang smack above us. It's called the zenith, the point of the sky directly above you. And that means that instead of just seeing these Geminids coming up from that 11 o'clock position below the horizon in Chile, or if you're in the USA, that's the view that you'll have at the moment. We can now see them going off to the right, the left, everywhere. So you can just see so many more Geminid meteors, and that's why we say it's better as the night goes on. But anyway, we are now going to enjoy some more live meteor watching, followed by Dr. Paige Godfrey returning to teach us about the strange parent object of the Geminids meteor shower, that rocky comet or asteroid 3200 Phaethon. And don't forget, we have live coverage. This is purely coincidence that Phaethon is making an historic close approach to Earth on Saturday. And we're going to have the telescopes that Slooh members use every night trained on that primordial lump of space rock left over after the formation of the solar system. So we're going to be training the telescopes as it makes its closest approach to Earth. But anyway, enjoy this music, and then we'll hear from Dr. Paige Godfrey again. See you in a bit.
everybody. Welcome back. This is Paige Godfrey again, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about the origin of the Geminids. First, I have two little announcements. We got a question on Facebook about this red dot that you can see in the all sky camera. It's bright red. That is not Planet 9. It is a bad pixel. It's just a oversaturated pixel. Don't go tracking it. And then my second announcement is more of a shout out. I'm going to be super goofy for a second and shout out to my mom because she's listening. I set her up with a Slooh Crew account while Paul was talking. He ran on and took some of my time. I decided to be productive. So, hi, mom. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about the origin of the Geminids, and I touched on this a bit in my first session with how, and actually Paul Cox just mentioned it again, that this meteor shower is not originating from a comet, but an asteroid. And this asteroid is called 3200 Phaethon. And when it got too close to the sun, some of the debris broke off into a tail. And as Earth is orbiting through this leftover debris, it smashes into the upper atmosphere of Earth and it vaporizes. And we see the fire, the vaporization of this rocky debris. This is the first meteor shower that was associated with an asteroid origin instead of a comet origin. And this meteor shower wasn't observed until 1862. I know Helen's going to talk a little bit later about the history of the Geminids, but the asteroid was observed in the mid 1800s, but the source, the asteroid 3200 Phaethon, wasn't uncovered until 1983, over 100 years later. And even then, the connection between Phaethon and the meteor shower wasn't immediate. Harvard astronomer Fred Whipple was the first to observe that the Geminid meteor shower was caused by the debris breaking off from asteroid 3200 Phaethon. This asteroid is a near-Earth asteroid, which means it has a perihelion distance. Now, perihelion means the closest distance to Earth in its orbit. So when it's orbiting around and it gets as close to Earth as possible, it has a perihelion distance of less than 1.3 AU. And as a reminder, 1 AU, where AU stands for astronomical unit, is the distance between Earth and the Sun, which is 90 million miles. So if it has a perihelion distance of less than 1.3 AU, then we call it a near Earth asteroid. And we have a meteor in this all sky view. If you look down near that red Planet 9, just kidding, the saturated pixel, you can see a meteor. And sure enough, it's coming from the draw a line straight up. It comes right from Gemini. Bottom right corner. So this asteroid, the perihelion distance is actually 0.14 AU. So that's really close. And this is the close approach that Paul Cox is going to be talking about on Saturday as we watch it through the Slooh telescopes. But this asteroid is also a potentially hazardous asteroid. Now, don't worry, it's not going to impact, but it's called this because its minimum orbit intersection distance, meaning that the shortest distance between the orbit of the asteroid and the orbit of Earth is less than 0.05 AU. It's actually 0.02 AU. So all of this means that it's a near-Earth asteroid because it comes really close to Earth, and it's a potentially hazardous asteroid because its orbit crosses with our orbit even closer. This asteroid originated out between Mars and Jupiter, where the main asteroid belt is located. So this asteroid belt is full of rock objects, And unlike the Kuiper Belt Oort cloud, where we have a lot of icy objects, these objects are all rocky. Not all necessarily. And if you heard from my intro to astro course earlier, I discussed a large asteroid, well, like comet in the asteroid belt made of ice. But most of the bodies in the asteroid belt are rocky, and one of them in particular is called Asteroid Path. It's one of the largest objects out in the asteroid belt. It has a diameter of 550 kilometers. And around Pallas is a bunch of little fragments, or we call it the Pallas family. When astronomers compare the reflectance spectra meaning the light curve, and reflectance spectra meaning when the sun shines on the asteroids, they reflect the light back at us, and we can look at the light that's being reflected back off of us. When they compare the reflectance spectra of asteroid Phaethon and asteroid Pallas, they were able to determine that the two asteroids have a similar surface composition. They're made up of similar things. And then the astronomers also examined the dynamical possibility that a piece of Pallas, a fragment of it, could have been kicked to an orbit from the main asteroid belt that crosses the planet and comes near Earth, the way Phaethon happened. Was that possible? And sure enough, the orbital dynamic models showed that it is. So based on these results, they were able to determine that the Geminid meteor shower is originated by asteroid Phaethon, the one that's making the close approach on Saturday, which is actually a fragment of the really large main asteroid belt object, Pallas. So if you checked out my illumination post on Slooh.com earlier, I'm calling Pallas the grandparent of the Geminids. Working back in the family tree, the parent asteroid Phaethon, and then the grandparent asteroid Pallas. And it's actually one of the fun tips, one of the asteroids that was determining that the asteroid belt was a ring of a bunch of rocky objects as opposed to a planet. So I mentioned this also in my course earlier that when the asteroid belt was first discovered, they didn't think it was a belt of rocky objects. They thought it was a planet between Mars and Jupiter because they couldn't see it. It was just based on dynamic models of the orbits and the locations of the planets in our solar system. But then they saw Saturn and Pallas and Vesta and about 100 more smaller, because those big asteroids in the asteroid belt, smaller asteroids out there, and realized that it was actually a large, massive bunch of rocky bodies that made up this area instead of one planet. So asteroid Path has a really big history in the asteroid belt. It's a really interesting asteroid to study, and it's the grandparent of meteor shower watching. So coming up after more music and live meteor watching, Helen Avery will return, and she will teach us about the mythology of asteroid Phaethon. Tune in.
Hello and welcome back. You are here with us at Slooh, and we are keeping our eyes peeled for some meteors this evening. We're watching the Geminids meteor shower here on Slooh through our live feeds, and we've had some success. It's not been too bad. I've counted about 9. I don't know if those who've stayed with us for the last hour and a quarter have counted as many as I have, but I'm getting about 9. And some people who are writing into Facebook saying that they've kind of wrapped up and braved the cold in our breaks and run outside and have been greeted in just a few minutes by a couple. Erin saw a couple in North Carolina. We had Suzanne in Ontario see a couple. So well worth, if you can, if you're somewhere cold, of just wrapping up and having a look outside. I know Paul Cox gave us some tips earlier. All I heard was chocolate, hot chocolate, and more chocolate. That was what I got about wrapping up and going outside. But in case you don't want to brave the cold, or you're just lazy, or you're enjoying our company, we are watching through our live feeds and hoping to see a few more at least. And I don't know about you, but I felt like there's been a bit of a couple of different colors. I definitely saw white, and the first one I would swear was blue. And I was kind of thrilled because I was reading an old observatory journal today, and there was a record of some of this particular meteor shower by someone in 1866, and they said that they saw a handful, I think it was 15 meteors while they were on watch, and they were blue and white. And I thought, oh, how apt for Hanukkah. So happy Hanukkah to those celebrating Hanukkah. Maybe you'll see some blue and white meteors this evening, but actually they come in all colors. There's lots of records I was reading in the past 150 odd years of aquamarine and red and blue. So if you see any other than the standard white, definitely let us know. And of course, if you do capture any with your cameras, we would love to see your images, and you can just send them to us or use social media, and we'll take a look. That would be great. So people from all around the world watching with us this evening. So just a big shout out to, I've seen Uruguay, Mexico, Puerto Rico, in addition to nearly every state in the US, across Canada, a couple of people in England and Germany, Australia. So it's really lovely. One of the things I love about anything celestial, but in particular meteor showers, is the notion that we can all enjoy them together all around the world. But that's not why I'm here now to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the myth of Phaethon. So as we heard from Dr. Paige Godfrey, the source of this particular meteor shower is actually not a comet, it's an asteroid, and it is 3200 Phaethon. And Phaethon, the source, has a legend all of its own, in fact, the most detailed of which was written by the Roman poet Ovid in the epic Metamorphoses in the year 8 AD. And this beautiful but tragic, they're always tragic, beautiful but tragic story goes that Phaethon's mother reveals to him that he is in fact the son of Phoebus, the god of the sun. And the clue was in his name, really, because Phaethon means the shining one. Disbelieving this story, though, Phaethon goes to his so-called father, Phoebus, to ask him if it's true. And Phoebus tells his son that yes, it is indeed correct. And in order to prove his divine lineage, he will grant Phaethon any wish he desires. That's going to be a bad idea, isn't it? So now Phoebus, as I mentioned, is god of the sun, and to the Romans, this is a Roman story, the sun was a blazing chariot that was pulled across the sky by horses, and Phoebus was the guide and driver of that chariot. So what do you think Phaethon asked? What do you think he wished for of his father Phoebus? Yep, he wanted the keys to the car. He wanted to drive the chariot that pulled the sun for just one day. So despite knowing this is a terrible idea, because the chariot requires incredible skill and stamina to control, Phoebus, his father, stands by his promise and reluctantly gives his son pretty much the keys, or gives him the reins and strict instructions on how to drive the chariot, telling him, whatever you do, no matter what happens, never drop the reins. But as soon as Phaethon sets off, the horses, sensing a different reinsman, begin to run amok. And Phaethon, in his panic, completely forgets the words his father told him and lets go of the reins. So what happens next, according to Ovid, is both beautiful and tragic. So the horses zoom up into the sky, pulling the blazing hot chariot with them. Around the heavens they go, swooshing past the moon, who cannot believe what she's seeing, before flying down so close to Earth that meadows are scorched and consumed. Cities go up in flames and nations are reduced to ashes. The whole of Earth is on fire. Unable to stand the heat any longer, the Earth then pleads with Jupiter to intervene, and Jupiter launches a lightning bolt at the charioteer Phaethon, killing him in an instant and bringing an end to the destruction. And as the body of Phaethon is hurled from the chariot, it hurtles headfirst through the air, leaving a trail of sparks behind it that appear to fall down to the earth like stars, or in this case, the Geminids. A sad end to Phaethon, but the gods agreed to place him in the heavens as a constellation, Auriga, known to the Romans as the charioteer. And obviously, since 1983, Phaethon is now known to us as the asteroid source of the Geminids. What I love about this story in particular is that one, Phaethon being a near asteroid, we have to sort of, be a bit fearful that Phaethon's going to zoom past us and cities will go up in flames. No, I'm sure that's not going to happen. But also this fact that Jupiter intervenes, because I don't know if you were listening to Paul Cox earlier, but he was talking about how Jupiter, the planet, is actually pulling the stream of the Geminids into its path, which is why we're getting to see more and more meteors with this shower every year. So wonderful. Obviously, that Ovid didn't know that was the case because the Geminids didn't exist back in Ovid's time, and we can talk about that a little bit later too. But yeah, a wonderful, wonderful story of Phaethon. So I haven't seen any, and I was hoping to win the whoever gets more meteors on while they're talking between me, Paul, and Paige wins tonight. But I've been out of luck this time. But hopefully you'll see some in the break we're about to take, or just sort of pop outside and have a look up if you can bear the cold and see if you spot any. If you do, let us know. We'd love to hear about it. So as I mentioned, we're going to take a break again, listen to some music and look at these wonderful feeds, keeping an eye on Castor and Pollux, those two stars in sort of the center here. And then coming up next will be Paul Cox again. He'll be back and he's going to teach us how to capture our own Geminids Meteor photographs with a digital camera. So well worth sticking around for, and enjoy.
Hello, I'm Paul Cox, and you're part of our global community night as we learn to explore space together. And tonight we've been celebrating all that glitters, the tears of the twins. It is my personal favorite meteor shower of the year. It's the Geminids. And from what we're hearing on Slooh's Facebook channel and Twitter, you lot are enjoying it out there as well. We've got Carol Botha from South Africa. It's 4 a.m. over there or around then. We really appreciate, Carol, everything that you do, all of your posts on Facebook. We've been enjoying that. So thank you very much. And we've also heard from, I think it was Lisa Baxter. We don't know whether or not she's in Middlesbrough, but we're not sure whether that's the UK or somewhere called Middlesbrough in the USA. But we're a bit clouded out here in Europe. I'm broadcasting from the UK, southwest of England, virtually the entirety of Europe and the UK. Yeah, I have to say the UK separately now, don't I? We're clouded out basically tonight, but thankfully we've got these feeds from all around the world. And look, this is actually one. I think this might be Prague actually, because we can just see I think it's one of the cathedrals or churches just down on the bottom of that image, but it's so clouded out, it's kind of blown out the entire image. But we have been seeing some terrific meteors. This is our all-sky camera over the Canary Islands Observatory. This is where what we're seeing over there on the left-hand side, those are two big domes, and they house the telescopes, a half-meter telescope, a 17-inch telescope, and a whole bundle more telescopes that Slooh members get to control every night. And this is 8,000 feet up on a volcano. It's actually based at the Institute of Canary Islands, Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands. And it's home to the largest telescope, optical telescope in the world. And Slooh members get to control those telescopes every night. And I'll tell you, it is a lot simpler than you may think. We have made it really easy, but also if you want to do some serious science or some astroimaging or whatever it is your interest is in, we cover the lot. Now, if this is probably a good time for me to tell you that if this is your first visit to Slooh, or if you're already registered as Slooh crew, please consider joining Slooh as an apprentice or astronomer member, because that supports our mission and it's going to help us preserve our little sanctuary free of clickbait and advertising. And you also get to control the online high-power telescopes that Slooh members use at this observatory and our Chile observatory. So there we can see the live view over the Canary Islands, but we might be able to hop over to the Chile observatory and see the sky there, because it's now getting it must be midnight there. It's coming up to midnight in Chile, and that actually means that this is getting to the good period where we should be seeing a lot of meteors. So there we can see that the constellation of Orion, it hasn't kind of spun very far into view. It's over on the left. It's just risen in the east. And Gemini, we're just seeing Gemini there popping up at the 11 o'clock position. So that's just coming into really good Geminid Meteor watching period of time after midnight. But you can see them as soon as it gets dark, as I told you earlier. But anyway, that's a cool view, isn't it, to kind of see the difference between the Canary Islands Observatory, which is off the west coast of Africa, and then the Chile Observatory as well. You can see just how much of the southern sky we get to see. Gemini doesn't really get that far above the horizon from Chile. Now, please also help spread the word about our live cast tonight on social media, and make sure you share any meteor shots that you capture tonight using @Slooh on our social channels. So far tonight, we have seen some terrific Geminids. Dr. Paige Godfrey has taught us about meteors in her Meteor Shower 101, and more about that peculiar rocky comet or asteroid 3200 Phaethon, whose debris trail is what we're watching tonight. As Earth passes through the trail, and those tiny meteoroids, they're the size of a grain of sand, but they vaporize in our upper atmosphere because of their astonishing velocity. And if you remember physics classes, velocity means energy. right? And they they slam into our atmosphere and vaporize. So these gorgeous looking meteors that we see, they're so bright. But I've always kind of thought they're amazing when I think it's the size of a grain of sand. It's not even as large as your little fingernail. Something the size of your thumbnail would cause a fireball, something that is almost bright enough to see in daylight. So these tiny little flecks, that's why they cause so much, they generate so much energy, and so much of that is released in light. That's what we're seeing. So anyway, what else have we done tonight? We have also learnt about the mythology of the constellation Gemini, the celestial twins Castor and Pollux, and also about the mythology of Phaethon from Slooh storyteller Helen Avery. And I shared with you some tips on how to watch the shower from your own backyard if you've got clear skies tonight. Now, from what we're seeing from a lot of our feeds tonight, the USA has actually got some pretty good weather tonight, or a lot of locations have, considering it's mid-December here in the Northern Hemisphere. So if you do go out there, really wrap up warm, make yourself comfortable. You can even go back, listen to the first part of the show, and I gave you some other tips. And as Helen says, the most important thing is chocolate bars and hot chocolate. You can't beat it. Anyway, listen, there's one area of Slooh. I'm going to tell you in a minute how you can photograph these meteors in your own backyard with a simple DSLR camera or something like that. But before I do that, there's one area of Slooh that is incredibly important to us that we haven't really spoken much about. But if you're here and you're obviously fascinated about space, it doesn't matter what direction you're coming at that from. But this area that we haven't really spoken about is called illuminations. Now, I said at the top of the show, you've come to the right place if you're interested to learn how to explore space. And it doesn't matter where your interest really lays. You might be fascinated by the myth and lore of the night sky. Or maybe your connection to the cosmos is more spiritual, or perhaps art and literature relating to space, like our book, The Saturn Above It. Christmas is coming up, by the way. If you know any other space lovers, get a copy of The Saturn Above It. It's this lovely anthology of space-related stories and accounts, and that was edited by Karen Stevens, who also actually gets involved with all of these shows as well. But maybe like me, you might be biased towards the science of astronomy. But actually, I also have a very varied interest. I love all of it, really. Yeah, an assortment of all of the others. But the way we can feed your particular interest is what we call illuminations. And it's a collection of stories and poetry and fascinating articles and a whole load more grouped into different categories on the Slooh website. And there is a bundle. Our theme over the last couple of weeks has been Gemini, the constellation of Gemini. I'm just getting something, a little message in here. Do excuse me. We'll take a quick look at this. Not quite sure what I was looking at there, but anyway, I'm going to carry on. The studio might tell me a little bit more about what I was looking at there. Anyway, there is all of this illuminations content on the website. So if you go to the illuminations sidebar and select best of illuminations, you will find a staggering quantity and quality of information, and it doesn't matter where your interest in space and the cosmos lays. But I've got a big warning for you here. Slooh's illuminations is like a cosmic rabbit hole. Before you know it, you've spent a couple of hours deep in the collection of posts and articles there. But do check it out. And we have, in fact, if you go to best of illuminations at the moment, you'll see a whole stack which are themed around tonight: Gemini, Phaethon, all of these other things that we've been talking about. But anyway, back to, if you've got clear skies tonight, you might be interested not just to watch them. And I would really, suggest to you, if you haven't ever seen a really good meteor shower, if you've got clear skies, the Geminids is the one to go for. And tonight's Geminids, we don't have any moonlight to spoil the view. So you really couldn't pick a better night to go out than tonight. But if you are kind of, like playing around with cameras and a bit of technology, then you might be interested to know just how easy it is to photograph your own meteors, capture your own meteors with a standard DSLR or the new breed of mirrorless cameras. Things like Sony's Alpha 7S, incredibly sensitive, and they're superb at capturing meteors. So what do you need? Well, there are two things. One, you need that digital single lens reflex camera or that new kind of mirrorless camera. And you can pick up secondhand ones of these. If you went for a Canon, say 450D on eBay, that's going to cost you about 150 bucks now. And I'll tell you, they are superb cameras. And get one of those, 150 bucks, ask Father Christmas. And the other essential for this is a tripod. You have to mount this camera on a tripod, whatever kind of camera you've got. So how do you set this thing up? Well, sturdy tripod once is the first thing. And don't extend the tripod legs all the way up and make it tall. You don't need to get it tall. You're looking up at the sky. You want the tripod set as low as it can be because that's how it's most stable. So standard sturdy tripod, and then before you mount your camera on it, wrap the camera to insulate it and prevent dew from forming on it, because any cold surface, any metal surface like your camera, or indeed the lens, when it's out under a cold night, you'll probably get dew forming, unless you're somewhere like the Canary Islands Observatory, which is so high. We get humidity levels of about 5% now. I mean, it's incredibly dry. But you're going to need to wrap your camera up, keep it warm. Another benefit there is keeping your battery warm in your camera, because if you let the camera battery get cold, it'll run down a lot faster. Now, the other thing you need to do, attach to your camera lens, is a lens hood. Now, if you haven't got one, that can be as simple as a piece of cardboard just wrapped around it, or maybe some of that foam, a yoga mat. I use that. Cut a piece of that and wrap it around the entire lens, and that's going to help prevent dew forming. Now, I'm just going to point out our live feed at the moment. We've switched to one of our live video views tonight. Now, this kind of view, slightly different from the kind of photography that I'm discussing here and some of our other long exposure cameras that we're using. This is a low light camera, video camera. So what we'll see here, if we catch a meteor, is an immediate flash. It will whiz through the screen so quickly that if you blink, you'll miss it. And I know that as soon as I blink, I'll miss it, because I always do. I'm not the luckiest meteor observer, which is why I like to photograph them from my own backyard. Well, you do need a bit of patience. So anyway, we've got our sturdy tripod, we've got our camera wrapped up, kept warm, we've got a lens hood over our lens. Preferably, if you've got one of those little hand warmer things, the little chemical packs, wrap that around the lens as well. Because if you keep that lens slightly warm, doesn't need to be hot, but slightly warm, it will prevent dew from forming. But the other way you can do that is if you have one of those little kind of low voltage hair dryers. So if your front of your lens, you need to check it. If the images start looking a bit blurry, it's because the lens has just got lots of dew on it. You can use a hair dryer just to blast that off a bit. But the other thing that I would recommend is, instead of relying on your batteries, use an AC/DC adapter. Now, make sure if you're outdoors using that you use a protected circuit breaker. Those little plugs that you can get if you want to use electricity out in the garden. Just keeps it safe, because your equipment can get wet. So there it all is. It's all set up. But what settings do you use on your cameras? Well, the ISO setting is the first thing that you want to set. And I'd recommend setting, the higher the ISO number, the more sensitive the camera gets, but the noisier the images get. And some of these new cameras, they have ISO settings of 250,000, stuff like that. But for most cameras, for a long exposure meteor shot, you can look maybe up to 6,000 or 8,000, something like that. But just experiment with those ISO settings. But you certainly don't want it down to a kind of daylight setting of 100 or anything like that. So what kind of exposure duration should you be looking for? Well, on a dark night like tonight, when there's no moonlight, you can set a very long exposure. You can set an exposure of maybe 30 seconds long. before you start seeing the stars beginning to trail because of Earth's rotation under the night sky. So a 30-second exposure is pretty good if you've got a moonless night. If there's moonlight up, then you might have to reduce that down because the sky background starts to get too light, but you won't have any moonlight to worry about tonight. Last thing I would recommend is the image format. If you can, collect your images, save your images in raw format, because then you can do some post-processing and some clever stuff on them rather than just saving them as JPEGs. But if you do save them as JPEGs, on your camera card, then make sure you save them at the highest possible quality. Framing and composition of your photos is the last thing that I'm really going to talk about here. And think about framing and composing your meteor shots in exactly the same way as you would any shot. Rule of thirds, keep your target a third in, or keep major elements a third the way across your image. And try and get, instead of just pointing it directly up to the sky, try and include some foreground vegetation or a building or a landmark, something like that. And it will add this tremendous perspective onto your meteor showers. A shot of just a starry field with a meteor going through it can be really spectacular. But adding in that little bit of foreground, it could even be your house. It could be some interesting trees silhouetted against the night sky. Just adds to that entire composition of your photo. There's one other thing that you need for meteor photography, and that is patience and tenacity. You're going to set your camera to just take continuous, probably 20 to 30-second exposures, one after the other. Now, you're going to use a fairly wide lens, so you'll be able to see quite a lot of the sky, not as much sky as we're seeing here. This is a 180-degree field of view through a special Meteor camera, which is a very low light camera that can really pick up very faint objects in a very short exposure. But the kind of images that you're going to be getting are limited, a smaller part of the sky. So the odds of you catching that Geminid meteor just as it shoots through your field of view is going to be slightly lower. So a bit of patience, bit of tenacity. Don't worry about checking them now, tonight, live. Check them in the morning when you get up, and you can just flick through all of your images in the warm and in the comfort of your own home. There are, by the way, some that I would highly recommend if you've got a little bit more money to spend and you can afford one of these new breed of mirrorless cameras. They're like DSLR cameras, but they don't have a lot of the problems of mirrors and flicking up for astrophotography, but they're also incredibly sensitive. So have a look. You can pick up now Sony A7Ss, the first generation, for some pretty good prices, and they make great astrophotography, landscape astrophotography cameras. Anyway, that is it for me on this little segment. But when we return, after some more meteor watching and a bit of music, Slooh's storyteller Helen Avery, she's going to be back, and she's going to be teaching us about the peculiar history of the Geminids meteor shower, a shower like no other, as she'll tell us. I've got one more thing that I will leave you with. We've been talking about this strange rocky comet, the asteroid, which is responsible for the Geminids meteor shower. By pure coincidence, and it is coincidence, as it's not directly related to seeing the meteor shower tonight, but by coincidence, asteroid 3200 Phaethon is making an historic close approach to Earth on Saturday night. Now that is at, I think we're starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's 10:30 UTC GMT. Now join me on that one, because we're going to be talking about much more about that mysterious object, and we've got live views from all of the Slooh's telescopes trained on that object as it whizzes through the field of view. It's a massive object as well. So anyway, join me at the weekend. But for now, we're going to have a little bit of music, chill out a bit, see if we can catch some more Geminid meteors. And then Helen's going to come back to tell us about that peculiar history of the Geminid meteor shower. Bye for now.
Hello and welcome back. Uh, you are here with me. I'm Helen Avery and I'm here with Slooh, and you are here with us as we are watching 4 meteors this evening through our live feeds. This particular one, I think this is our Canary Islands feed, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. And we are looking for meteors from the Geminids. It's the Geminid Meteor shower this evening, the best of the year, and we don't even have a moon this evening, so fantastic viewing. If you don't have clouds, it's certainly a great night to get out and about and have a look at the Geminids. So, just wanted to a big shout out again from everyone who's watching this evening. We've got people from all around the world, and also BuzzFeed have been streaming our live feed, so there's a whole community there watching with us, as well as people stepping out in their backyards. Apparently, Middlesbrough, England, who would have thought, is a place to see the Geminids this evening. Lisa Baxter said she saw 14. All of Europe is covered in cloud. Apparently, there is a bright spot over in Middlesbrough. Okay. So, I'm sorry, I just got beeped by the studio and wondered what was going on. Okie doke. But anyway, what I wanted to talk to you about for just sort of as we're coming to a bit of a close was the history of the Geminids. So unlike some meteor showers, the Geminids doesn't have a very long history. There are records of the Lyrids that we're going to see in April, for example. They date back about 2,700 years. And then the Leonids, I don't know if you were with us for that show last month, but there are also reports of the Leonids for the last 1,000 years, and indeed have been, the Leonids have been so spectacular with some like 1,000 an hour in the shower of 1833 that it's hard not to have a lot of records, really. Not quite that many here with us this evening. But the first records we really find of the Geminids aren't until the 1800s, and that's in part simply because the Geminids weren't in Earth's path until then. So the first discovery of the Geminids was in 1861 by a gentleman in Manchester, England, so not too far from Middlesbrough, I guess, by the name of Robert Phillips Gregg, and he was the grandson of a wealthy mill owner, and he also was an author. He wrote a book about minerals, and he noted just a handful of meteors that particular evening. And it's thought there were a couple of reports, maybe 30 years before that. But another reason we don't have many records was that the shower just wasn't very prolific. And then, remember in the Northern Hemisphere, December weather isn't very conducive to standing around for long periods looking up, and that's if you get a cloudless night. So just really kind of wasn't on the radar. But the year after Robert Phillips Gregg saw the Geminids, they were again spotted in the US and sort of discovered all over again. And from that moment forward, they became a designated meteor shower and have been seen every year. But as Dr. Paige Godfrey mentioned earlier, it's sort of a bit of an unusual history because it wasn't until 100 years after, or over 100 years after, they'd been discovered that that we sort of understood what the source of the shower was. It isn't a comet, it's actually an asteroid, and we've been talking about that asteroid this evening, 3200 Phaethon. So it was in 1983, as Dr. Paige Godfrey mentioned, that discovery was made, and that replaced Fred Whipple's theory of 1954 that the Geminids were debris from a comet. So what I find fascinating about the Geminids, I mean, other than it's just beautiful and it's lovely to be out under the stars and on a clear, crisp night to see shooting stars and meteors. We're not seeing it at the minute, but fingers crossed, we've got some time left, and you've got all night. What I find fascinating about them is that it's like an evolving meteor shower. So in the second half of the 1800s, after their discovery, most reports claim to spot perhaps like 10, 15 meteors an hour. And I found this really lovely record in 1892 again in the Royal Observatory notes that on the night of December 12th, 1892, a Professor A.S. Herschel at Slough, England, watched the western sky during the 3 hours of the interval between 10:45 and 14:38 and registered the paths of 24 shooting stars. What I love about this record is that A.S. Herschel is actually Alexander Stewart Herschel, and that's astronomy legend William Herschel's grandson and John Herschel's son. So we're in really good company when we're looking up for the meteors this evening. But as I mentioned, you sort of, 15, in this case, 24. He was lucky, obviously had an eye, inherited an eye for the sky. But from the 1900s on, the number of shooting stars seen during the Geminids has increased. Now, I know people do like to say 120 an hour, but as Paul Cox mentioned earlier, probably not that many, more like 60. But that's certainly more than it used to be, and it's increasing. So, whereas many of our meteor showers come with a history, the Geminids, in fact, seem to come with a future because they're only going to get better and better. And hopefully they're going to get better and better tonight. And we'll make history by seeing the record amount of Geminids. But still nothing yet. We did see 10, so we didn't do bad for the whole evening. And of course, it's early. But for now, I'm going to leave you with some music. We're going to just watch these feeds a bit more and see if we can squeeze out any more meteors, any more Geminids. But don't go away because I'll be back, and I'll be talking about some of the great shows and live casts we have coming up over the next few weeks, including the close-up live views of this peculiar asteroid we've been talking about tonight, 3200 Phaethon, as it makes its historic close flyby to Earth on Saturday night. So not to be missed. But for now, enjoy the music, maybe pop outside, wrap up, take some of that hot chocolate Paul Cox has been talking about. Did I really hear him talk about a yoga mat? I find this hard to believe that Paul Cox is doing yoga. But step outside, see if you can find any. And if you do see any, we'd love to hear about it. You can reach us on social media. You can head over to the website and put a post in the community discussions, or even post something inspired in Illuminations. We are all here waiting to see these together. And so enjoy, and I'll be back momentarily. So welcome back. My name's Helen Avery and I'm here with Slooh, as are you, and we have been watching the Geminids meteor shower, and we've had some successes. We're going to be looking at a moment of a time lapse. Here we go. Where we'll be able to see some of the streaks across the sky. There will be the Geminids that we saw tonight. So great. A bit of a recap on your screens of some of the things we saw. Wonderful. And it's been a really great night. It's always wonderful to be in company watching the sky together, whether we're outdoors or inside. It's all lovely, and it's sort of beautiful to think of everyone around the globe being able to enjoy shooting stars together. Not that many events really bring the whole world together, but celestial events do, and that's what we're passionate about sharing here at Slooh. So we are so thrilled that you've been with us this evening, and really people from all over the world, as I keep mentioning. I just say India and South America, and Missouri, Arizona, Florida. I could go on and on and on with these US states, England, Germany, Australia, New Zealand. It goes on and on. So I really hope you feel as much a part of this community as we do. But however, the night is young and we are going to be ending our live feeds. So it's time to step outside. Take your digital cameras with you, as Paul has now told you how to take your best shots, and head outside and take some pics, because we'd love for you to share them with us. If you take any good ones, you can find us on Twitter and obviously on Facebook, but also come over to slooh.com and share some of those photos with us there, maybe in Illuminations or on the discussion board. So wrap up warm as you head outside. I'm feeling a little bit more like I might just pop my head out, have a quick peek, and then pop into bed. But if you manage to catch any snapshots, we would love to see them. And if you can share those on the highlights timeline on slooh.com. Or if you want to even just share, how much you enjoyed this evening, or how you enjoyed the Geminids, or if you have a personal story you want to share about the Geminids, then feel free to. We'd love to see it in the community discussion board. And if you're feeling really inspired, or not even really, we'd love to see a post about it in Illuminations. That's all over there on the website, and you'll see tons of posts already there on the Geminids, on Castor and Pollux, on 3200 Phaethon, and the community is very special and very welcoming. So you'll be well received when you're over there, if you're not there already. And while you're there, you might be able to piggyback on a telescope mission and get a closer look at some of these objects, or even sign up to be a member, an apprentice, and you can book your own telescopes. You might even spot yourself an asteroid flyby. But if you don't catch 3200 Phaethon hurtling past, it's not easy to say. Don't fear, because coming up over the weekend, as I mentioned, we have a special solo live cast with Paul Cox. He's going to be on Saturday as the Geminids asteroid Phaethon makes its closest approach to Earth. So don't miss that. Then on Sunday evening, it's a whole Sunday evening with Slooh. It's beautiful. Starting with Paul Cox, he's going to be talking about what's up this week. So he's going to be sharing what we're going to see in the sky, the night sky next week, and also sort of highlighting some of the cool things you can see through our telescopes next week too. And then he's going to be talking about practical astronomy, maybe sharing a bit more about that yoga mat. And then I'll be on at 9 p.m. as I am every Sunday to share with you constellation stories, and we're going to do a deep dive into the lore of Constellation Auriga, so Phaethon himself. But we'll be hearing all sorts of mythical tales, as well as looking at some pretty cool nebulae and some star clusters. So plenty more from us at Slooh, and we hope you'll join us. Till then, we wish you a wonderful night and, of course, clear skies.